Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. All mass crowd events, including festivals like jazz, carnival, and the Groseley Friday night have all been cancelled to ensure that the spread of COVID-19 is contained. Concerns have been raised about the livelihoods of individuals in the creative and entertainment sector who depend on such events to make ends meet. They are calling attention to their plight. Genevieve Gonzague reports.
The creative industry has suffered a massive blow as all mass crowd events or gathering of any sort has been cancelled or otherwise postponed until 2021. Many artists, dancers and persons involved in the production of events such as Carnival are now simply waiting and riding out the effects of COVID-19 until they are able to convene and work again. Concerns are pouring in about what is being done by the authorities for local artists as well as entertainers on cruise ships who are currently displaced.
I am very, very concerned about the artists, musicians, producers of music in St. Lucia. I'm very concerned about how they're going to survive. No jazz, no carnival, no basic tourism happening in any other hotels, no one to entertain. How long this may continue. I'm really worried about the economic viability and what is in place. Is anything in place for them from the powers that be?
Local artist Ronald Bohinkson has proposed that authorities deal with displaced artists with a long-term approach rather than only when needed. He says creative artists are an integral part of a multi-billion-dollar industry, and thus far, beyond the pandemic, artists should be recognized as such.
I particularly want the authorities to look at the artists from a long-term perspective, It's not just to do with this coronavirus. I noticed there's mention of the creative industry in the package that government has offered, My concern is even beyond that. My concern is that we are an integral part of a multi-billion-dollar industry in the world, and we must be taken more seriously generally. So whereas this is something, I don't consider it sufficient for the artists, but beyond that, we must be taken more seriously.
The reigning Calypso monarch, Dennis T. Carolillo, is very optimistic that things will get better. He says this is just a minor setback in the world of entertainment.
At this time, I'll probably be getting ready for the RUC Jam. Of course, my music would have been ready for my defense in relation to the Calypso monarch. Right. And of course, Carol's Kitchen, of course, feeding the city. Right. But, just set back a little bit, but obviously, we will recover soon, I'm sure.
As a member of Balance, a group which advocated for the rights of artists, Leo is positive in coming days, artists will be given their due as the president is in constant interaction with the Minister for Culture.
As a group, what we have done is we have discussed some of the possibilities, how we could help those artists that depend heavily on the season for survival. And I want to say hats off to the president, Lennon. He's doing an awesome job making sure he's making the connection with the minister, and I think they're in discussion at this point as to the way forward as to how those persons who are not very highly dependent on the season for survival, how are they going to survive. I'm sure the minister, of course, in a kindness, will certainly have a nice arrangement for us. There are also plans to as soon as we get the opportunity, not to allow the entire season to just go by, but certainly have some kind of fundraiser or something to help out and give artists the opportunities to express themselves, because a lot of the artists already had music prepared, etc. So we're trying to see how we can make them benefit from all of the work they have done so far.
Ronald Bohinkson has suggested that more airtime should be given to local artists by DJs during this time to help them earn more royalties. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
The Healthy Caribbean Coalition and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States OECS Commission are concerned about the challenges to regional food security and accessing safe and nutritious food during and beyond the COVID-19 pandemic.
The COVID-19 pandemic threatens to undermine the gains made in recent years in the prevention and control of diet-related non-communicable diseases, as well as the maintenance of good health among people living with non-communicable diseases. Population-based COVID-19 control measures are creating environments conducive to significant dietary shifts away from fresh produce towards non-perishable, energy-dense, nutrient-poor, processed and ultra-processed foods high in fats, salt, and sugars. The loss of nutritious meals by tens of thousands of children who benefit from national school meals programs is another casualty of the COVID-19 pandemic in the Caribbean, a region already on a dangerous trajectory towards crisis levels of overweight and obesity. These COVID-related threats to the diets of Caribbean people are further exacerbated by the regional droughts and an anticipated above-average hurricane season. Working concurrently with the CARICOM Secretariat, the OECS Commission has opted to coordinate harmonized national and regional responses to the potential threats to food security presented by COVID-19. The OECS member states have been mobilized to develop their national agriculture sector COVID-19 response strategies and facilitate the intra-regional trade of excess supply of fresh produce generated from intensive production over the foreseeable future. At the core of this two-pronged strategy is the thrust to utilize nutritious, locally produced and culturally appropriate foods to stabilize the food market and, by extension, regional food security. At the national level, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has taken the lead on this effort, developing and implementing its coronavirus food security and impact mitigation plan. This was done at the beginning of March 2020. In addition to commercial production, the country has been actively promoting backyard gardening and the consumption of immune system boosting foods. Similar measures are also being taken in Dominica, where heavy investments have been channeled into the production of short-term crops, livestock, and fisheries. Other member states, like St. Lucia, have disclosed stimulus packages where agriculture is cited as a priority area, and these countries are in the process of finalizing their response plans.
A member of the business community is urging St. Lucians to acknowledge the efforts of the government to provide fair and substantial aid to the population, underscoring the need for a large group of people to be assisted with very limited resources. He says business owners should be happy to receive aid in any form. Jacques Wooding reports.
Small business owner Michael Flood is calling on members of the business community whose operations have been impacted by COVID-19 to exercise patience and compassion with the capacity of government to provide financial assistance. Flood says the need for vulnerable sectors of the population to be equally involved in the distribution of aid is evident, and this is no time to be selfish.
Whilst I understand better could be done, but again I will say at this present moment, and what one needs to recall, the Prime Minister's pronouncement was that the package that is put together is for the next, I think, for the next 3 to 6 months. In 6 months in some cases, 3 months and 6 months in some cases. So it varies. One could never tell. The next package that is put together, it could be a lot better for all of us.
Flood says beggars cannot be choosers, especially in the context of financial assistance. According to Flood, the government must be commended for ensuring that all citizens will be sustained during the ongoing financial crisis.
I believe it's better that we're getting a little than we get nothing. Okay, the entire country is suffering. There are persons, as far as I'm concerned, who have not worked for the last 10 years, okay, who have not contributed to NIC, and yet they need assistance. So what are you going to tell me? That I should take all, and those who have not worked in quite a while, who are in need, that they stay without? I believe if there is $10, that $10 should be spread across the table for everybody.
He urged members of the public to remain vigilant of the global financial situation at this time and realize that the government of St. Lucia is succeeding where many other global powers have failed. For 7 News, I am Jacques Wooding.
Veteran journalist Earl Bousquet is cautioning against a rush to reverse COVID-19 protocols and a full reopening of the country. He warns that St. Lucia should be guided by what has happened in other countries around the world.
As COVID-19 continues to wreak havoc on the economies of countries, there are growing voices advocating for the reopening of commercial activities. Veteran journalist Earl Bousquet is warning against the rush to relax or reverse measures put in place to combat the spread of COVID-19. He says, while this trend is being seen in European countries and the US, it is something that small island developing states such as St. Lucia need to be extremely cautious about.
Several countries have started to ease on the COVID restrictions. At least 15 states in the United States have come together and called on the president to allow them to return to normal by allowing businesses to reopen so that the economy could get going again.
Bousquet says, while he understands the economic plight of countries, the eye of the COVID-19 storm has not passed, nor is the storm over.
The world trends are indicating that the worst is yet to come. The Director General of the World Health Organization, for every day of the past week and of his daily press conferences, has been warning countries that it is too early to lift restrictions, that rather than lifting restrictions and allowing people to go back to what used to be normal, this is the time to batten down and prepare, because COVID is still invisible, there is still no cure, and the number of persons being affected is increasing.
Though there have been no deaths recorded in St. Lucia, Bousquet says St. Lucia needs to remain vigilant to ensure that deaths remain at zero. He says people have begun and will continue to complain about being at home, but precaution is better than cure.
Fortunately, nobody has died in St. Lucia, but we will join that club. And we have to start to understand that this is a calm before the storm, and that this calm is not like a hurricane calm that might result in the hurricane not coming. COVID is worse than a hurricane. It is here, it is present, it is invisible, it is no less dangerous, and this is not the time for the government, opposition, or anybody, anywhere, to call for or implement a reduction in the restrictions. People will start telling you they're tired of getting tired of being tired at home. But it is better to be tired at home than on a ventilator at hospital.
The public is being asked to continue following the advice of the Ministry of Health and the protocols of the partial shutdown and the 10-hour curfew. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. There's more coming up after the break.